Hello, this is Dale Matthews. I'm next to an entrance to a mine, and joining me here at the entrance to the mine is Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey Dale. Yeah, this is nice out here by this mine.
And you can practically hear the birds chirping. Look, this is what it's all about. This is what the whole thing is about with the
Yes.
Galice Mining District and with the Sugar Pine Gold Mine. And we've got just a little footage for you. Just pretend like it's Sunday morning and you're watching CBS. Go ahead and play that. And too bad we don't have flugelhorns in the background. Go ahead and play that, Mike. This is what all the fuss is about.
Yes. Yeah, you had the next best thing to flugelhorns there. You had birds chirping, and that was actually,
Your picture
four or
is
five
awful
people
dark,
there.
Mike. Mike, your picture is very, very dark.
Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I cannot see. I cannot see the controls, Dale.
People often say that Mike is in the dark, but this is
What shall
ridiculous.
I do? Okay. That's wow.
There he
That's
is.
better.
Whoa, what a tricky guy. Yeah.
That's much better. No,
Yes.
that really is. I mean, if everybody shuts up, that's what it was like out there. It was very tranquil.
So I'm trying to shoot this footage, and I'm saying to people, please be quiet. We're going to try to capture what we call the ambient noise, just the things that are there so that you
Right.
can just see this. They're like, okay, I get it. And then they're walking around. It's gravel. It's crunch, 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 crunch.
Yes.
And I'm looking back at them like, die. Would you please die? And they're, what's the matter with this guy? Just shh. Okay, okay. And then they're walking around. Stop walking around. And then they go over in a corner and they start loudly whispering to each other.
Wow.
Whatever.
Oh, well. It worked out.
Yes, it did. It worked out. And over in this corner, what do you think that is? I mean, when you look over my shoulder here, what do you think that you're seeing?
Well, judging by what's over your left shoulder, I would have to say that is gold of some sort over your
Yeah,
right
it's supposed
shoulder.
to be between two fingers. It's supposed to be between.
Yes.
This is not easy to do when you're on camera. It's
Right.
supposed to be a
You
gold
know,
nugget between two fingers. Yeah, go ahead.
and we forgot to get samples while we were out there yesterday.
There we were, and we could have said, "Hey, we're glad to be here. Would you please offer us some samples?"
Yes. Yes, I'm sure they would have just ponied right up.
Now, last night, what we had for you is we had audio clips because we did this quickly. We were just there yesterday. We were the very first journalists we were the first explorers in the world to discover
Yes.
this new land, right? And I'm going to
Right.
name it Mike Land from now on.
Okay. All right.
And so we were there, and we showed a still to you, and then we played the audio. We're not going to play the whole thing all over again. You've already heard that, and we're putting up the videos for you to see in glorious high definition with great sound. This is the technical part of the show. Just relax, would you? Okay, so we also shot a second interview with each and every person. So I'm talking while Mike gets that first one together, and the first thing that you're going to see is I like this guy. I like Danny. Everybody seems to love Danny. So the first thing you're going to see is Danny Vanderhosen Blickenbergen.
No, it's Vander Sheldon now. Come on. Okay, here we go.
This is Danny Vandershelden, and he's the caretaker here at the Sugar Pine Mine. Danny, what is it that you want people to understand about this situation here? How to pronounce my name?
Couple things. First off, from a very personal perspective, I dropped out of college to come down here. This was 2010. I dropped out of college, left a full ride scholarship behind because I wanted to mine and I wanted to come here. I wanted to work and I wanted to make something of myself. If I'm willing to do the work and do the research and learn the skills, I should be able to work and make a living. I shouldn't have to have the government constantly harassing me. This is just one of many instances of my life where government has passed these new laws and new regulations keeping me from being able to freely work in this industry. Secondly, I want people to realize that this is private property. We have the paperwork in hand to prove that. BLM has yet to show us any other paperwork to prove otherwise. So if they can come in here and burn down our house, what's keeping them from going over and burning your house? There's no difference. I mean, we have the deed and the paperwork in our hand proving ownership. This is complete lawlessness.
Now, when you said burning down the house, what would make you think that the BLM would be involved in burning down a house?
Right. Since about the 70s, I believe, BLM has been going on a cabin burning frenzy through these hills, burning down the old mining cabins. One of the claim owners that had a cabin of his burnt down in, I believe, the 80s. On this very claim block, there's been cabins burnt down on the other side of Bear Camp Road. They burned a cabin down while this claim was in ownership of a previous owner. On my mine up the hill, they burnt down buildings. They burnt down hundreds of buildings in this area, and you can ask any miner, they will confirm that with you.
Now, the BLM is going to say, well, we have every justification for doing that. And the other side would say, no, wait a minute. They have a tendency to burn first and ask questions later. Where does this fit within the whole area of legality, government, people, claims, etc.?
Like I said before, this is a private property. This is our private house. We built this. They cannot come burn our house down before we have a day in court. That is our house. I mean, if they can legally do this, there's nothing stopping them from going and burning your house down.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, that is. Now, just so that you know, in case it seems like his mouth is not matching exactly with the video, it's because of the vagaries of the internet. We're having some kind of problems this evening, more than usual. For some reason, it seems darker in here to me. I don't know. It's a dark subject. I'm in a mine shaft. Didn't Hitler write a book called that, Mine Shaft? Something like that. Anyway,
something along those lines.
So when you see the full length video about this, it'll all become clear, and it won't seem like Keith Eck was right that we're inserting words into his mouth. The next person that we're going to talk with here is Mary Emmerich. And what I didn't realize at the time, because I didn't feel anything, apparently we were in the middle. What, Mike? Apparently we were in the middle of some kind of terrible earthquake.
Hey. I thought you were going to try and sell this as, Blair Witch Project 2 or something.
Oh, don't worry. They'll think it's their home TV sets. I will tell you that joke, and that comes directly.
Well, now I'm going to defend myself before we go even into this.
It was all handheld.
Yes. Well, we had two cameras, but one of them wasn't running. So
I wasn't the last one to hit the record button on that, apparently, because I started it running, and then I went in front of the camera, and then another helpful person came by and said, "Oh, let me press this button."
Took the ambient noise clip and then didn't press it again for the other one. Yes.
Got your clip of this is a still.
All right, buddy. All right.
Mine. So. Please watch.
You'll never see this kind of quibbling on NBC or CBS or whatever.
No. This is the kind of behind the scenes.
Yes, this is the kind of behind the scenes that you pay extra for.
That's right. Yes, and keep those cards and letters and checks coming. So here is an interview with Mary Emmerich, who is the Public Information Officer for Oath Keepers. So, Mary Emmerich, you are the Public Information Officer for Josephine County Oath Keepers. What message do you have for Oath Keepers and other citizens across the country about the situation here in Southern Oregon?
First of all, I'd like you to be aware that this situation is taking place all across the United States. We recently got a call from Alaska asking for advice, and they ended up calling Oath Keepers in to help them as well. Do your homework, do your research. This is happening all over the United States. Mining rights predate everything that's happened in local governments. We abide by the Constitution, and we're just trying to keep those rights in place. Please join us. We need help on the ground. We need financial support, and we need you to be active in your own area.
Nice, flattering shots at all times. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, I think that's your good side, Dale.
You can't tell the difference between a rock face and my face. Great. Well, one thing it does is it takes away from Mary, because neither one of us were at our best with under those lighting conditions. Now, that's not the point, of course. You know what we do on this show. We present you with hard news, and then we soften it up a little bit, like by licking the candy coating. Well, whatever it is we do. We melt in your mouth, not in your hand. I don't know what we do.
Wow.
Yeah,
You totally have got me lost.
the candy coating of the news. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
All right. So then now here's Joseph Rice. He is the coordinator. Yeah, whatever the title is. He is the coordinator for Josephine County Oath Keepers. And I asked him generally the same kind of question. What the heck is going on here, Joseph?
Yes.
Joseph Rice, you're the coordinator for Oath Keepers. What do people need to know about this situation at the Sugar Pine Mine?
Currently, we do have operational security and control of the Sugar Pine Mine. We are requesting personnel to continue the operational support. We are requesting supplies. I have to deeply thank the local community and their support. I have received emails, phone calls. People have dropped by the staging area and provided food, donations, asked whatever they can do to help this. Within the area, a lot of stories have arisen and come out about their issues with the BLM. And so this is a topic of contention in the Siskiyous, in Josephine County. I think the community, as I'm seeing, is about 80% supporting what's occurred here with these mine owners. Unfortunately, they had to take this step to protect their constitutional due process right. I don't believe any American, any place in this nation, should have to feel like that. And if a government entity and the culture of that organization believes that they can do that, then that's on them. They need to take a hard look as to what that institution is, what that institution's values are, and how they work and serve the public, serve Americans. If the BLM had simply stated, hey, we're writing you a ticket, here's your hearing date, we would not be here. That's not what they did. They said, get everything out of here and then try and get your due process. That's why we're here.
Now, I want you to notice that we're treating you with respect and assuming that you've got a pretty good idea of what's happening already, and this is additional footage. If you're looking at this going, what the heck are they talking about? Go watch last night's show for April 20th, and we explain it from the beginning. But we're going to treat you, as I said, with respect and assume that you've got a pretty good idea, and these are updates to the current situation. Mike, we were on KMED with Bill Meyer this morning, and he asked us a number of questions. Can you recount for our viewers this evening what it was that seemed to be Bill Meyer's main concern?
Well, he kind of wanted to know what was going on there, but I think he wanted us to tell him how many people were there and, in what capacity they were there. And of course, part of our agreement in going out there was that those were things that we wouldn't divulge.
Well, even if we hadn't agreed on that, even if we hadn't said that, that would be a kind of a lunkhead thing to do. Oh, by the way, they're positioned 50 feet this way and 100.
Right.
We're not going to be doing that. You don't need to ask us to please don't identify exactly what kind of weapons and how many people and etc. It's just something. This is a gold mine. Yeah. It has these things in it. So, or things like this. So we're not going to be revealing that. He seemed one of the questions that everybody has, and I think for most people that's been solved. Why are Oath Keepers showing up to do this? And what's their motivation? And why is this necessary? And who seems to be in the right and in the wrong? Mike, why don't you just sort of summarize that issue for people, if you will?
Well, none of this would be necessary if the federal government, and the BLM more specifically, wasn't if they weren't attempting to circumvent the rights of the mine owners there. None of this would be necessary. The Oath Keepers wouldn't have the need to come in and help to make sure that their Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights were preserved. Listen, the federal government can easily keep this from happening in the future if they would just cease the type of activity, the arrogance, the heavy-handedness, the jackbooted thug type behavior. That's kind of my look at the thing. And it would be very difficult. Now, they may have, the BLM may have some legitimate cause in their, objection in the summons that they served to the miners. But in my way of looking at it, these are my kind of people. These are self-reliant people. They don't need anything from anybody. And from what I saw, they're not destroying the area out there. They have a great deal of respect for the ground that's given them, the living that it is. And I just think that this is the BLM out of control.
Well, under the under the Fifth and 14th Amendment, the people are supposed to be guaranteed the right to due process. Sorry, I'm leaning too far forward. The right to due process. And it looks as if, based on the record of what's happened there before, it looks as if the people there have not been getting that. And so it's too bad that the previous people did not have someone to stand up for them and say, hey, hold on a second. Give them their day in court before you burn down their dwelling. Just imagine if it was your house and the federal government or any government came to you and said, now look, you're in trouble. And you say, well, I'll meet you in court. They say, okay, you're going to meet us in court, but first you have to take everything out. Just imagine if you had to get everything out of your house, everything.
Yes.
And you have to shut down your mine. Don't we all have that in our backyard? And you have to get all the vehicles off there. You have to move everything. You have to put them,
fill in the tunnels.
Yeah, and like I have in my basement, they were constructed by my cat who was building a spaceship in the basement. And you got to get all this stuff out of there. And then you have your day in court. And oh, by the way, we're going to burn down your house.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. And some of this equipment is quite dated equipment, has been on the mine for a long, long time. And, back in the day, they built things out of real steel and iron and stuff. And the stuff is big and heavy and whatever. I mean, just the logistics of moving all that stuff out of there in 10 days or whatever it was that they gave them. How much that would
cost.
Yeah.
And just think that, and just alone, think of the cost of shutting down the mine. I mean, closing it off. I mean, taking this and getting this, 100-year-old dolly out of the way, and then crunching all this and taking out the pipe and that's a huge expense. And then if you win, you got to open it all back up again.
Right? Yes, it's silly. They obviously, they're not going to tell you to shut the mine down and close the surface back up unless they're assuming that you're never coming back there. And I think that is what they're assuming. They assume that we're getting these people out of here and we're not going to let them come back in. And that hole in the ground, it's an amazing thing. That hole goes back in there 1,100 feet. That is amazing.
Now, they may be right. We don't know. They may be right that in a court of law with the government that we have and all the rest of that, maybe they're 100% correct on everything. I don't know. But first, you give the people their day in court. Then you go.
Yes. You don't. Yes. Yeah. You don't send Darth Vader in to, hold people up off the ground by their neck until it's, until they've been convicted here,
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. Look, again, we don't know who's right in this situation. But in America, first, you get your day in court if you can afford it. and then they burn everything down.
And I have to say that I have prejudged this thing a little bit because when the heavy-handed, arrogant, I'm restraining myself here.
Tell people what you really think, Mike.
Yes, when those kind of people are doing what they have done up there and have a history of doing, I sort of side with the miners in this particular case. But that's just me. We'll see what happens. On Thursday, there's going to be a rally over in Medford at the BLM where they're going to turn in, I guess they're going to answer the summons. And so we're going to see what happens from there. This is going to be interesting to watch this whole thing play out. It's kind of hard when you get in a fight with the federal government because they have unlimited amount of money to throw at fighting you.
And where do they get that money, Mike Jones?
Yes, they get it from us, and that's
right.
Well, that sort of adds the insult is to the injury. They're using your money to basically oppress you. Or, so I don't know.
Well, something that a number of people have been saying is, well, they want them to close up this mine. You know what would be a heck of a note? If they wanted the people off the property, but they had no intention of closing the mine because it's got this stuff in it.
Well, yes, but you know what? If Danny's, and we heard in his interview there last night, we heard that he suspects pretty much that it's a possibility that the federal government or the BLM is interested in this mine because there is a lot of untapped gold in there, and a lot of money could be made off of the leases, and if the federal government leased this out to a big time mining operation, they'd come in with some serious equipment and tear into that place like you never saw before and, extract some real wealth out of there. But the idea that, the federal government, doesn't like these guys doing it for themselves and they want to have a hand in it themselves. I don't want to believe that about my government, but I already believe stuff that's pretty close to that. So this wouldn't be too big of a stretch.
Now, most people already know the answer to this question, but there may be some people who say, no, wait a minute. The federal government owns that land. There's something wrong with that word. Federal government owns the land. No, they don't. Tell them the difference, please, Mike.
Well, I believe that this is a claim that is surrounded by public land. Now, public land is not exactly.
It's managed by the government,
right? Managed, and it's owned. Right, it's owned by the people of the country. However, kind of seems like the BLM really doesn't see it that way, and I think, and I may be wrong on this, but I think that the miners consider that the dating of their claim and everything has this claim being outside of the normal public lands that are around it, that it is a claim of its own. It's separate from.
Well, the other thing to remember
is
in this mine in particular, some people say it's the oldest hard rock mine in all of Oregon. Others say, well, maybe it's the oldest hard rock mine that's remaining in America. We're not sure. But one thing that we do know is Oregon wasn't even a state. So there are some hard and fast rules about what miners can do with the proper claims in the United States. And so if there are questions about it, which there apparently are, those things are settled, we can hope, amicably and fairly in a court of law, not at the end of a flaming stick.
Yes.
That's not perfectly said, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it's, makes sense to me.
So I would love to be there on Thursday, but see, we cover county politics also. This is part of county politics now. And so Thursday is the big day for the county commissioners and their administration meeting. Now, if it was just going to be another one or some general discussion, I'd go with Mike. But there's going to be a lot of things happening this Thursday at the county commissioners meetings. It's chock full of nuts, plenty full of commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to go one way with the camera. Mike's going to go the other way with the camera. And then we'll meet up later and we'll tell you what's happening at both places at once. You may have thought when you first started watching these shows, these guys are going to run out of steam. There's not going to be anything to talk about. No, it's doubling. So
yeah, it's the pace is quickening.
Yes,
sure.
We've been talking. A number of people have come to us with details, not only outside government, but inside government, because they know they can trust us. That's why we were the first journalists at this mine ever, as far as I know. And that's why they told us over and over again, you're the first and only ones who've been here. That may have been one of the reasons why the security guys were a little tense, like, why are they here? And
yes.
and what are they going to be shooting? We're not going to be shooting anybody. We'll be videotaping, if that's okay with you. No shooting of anybody, please. Let's both agree to that. No shooting. So that's why Bill Meyer had some questions for us this morning about what was it that was really happening? What's the tenor? The people there, in my opinion, Mike, were tense and serious, dead serious. But a couple of them, like Danny, had a little bit of a sense of humor, and that's a good thing, especially when you're around me, because I have this tendency to try to break the tension a little bit by making silly jokes.
Well, and he is one of the guys working on the mine there, which is distinctly different from the security team that was there. That's the difference.
Yeah, the first thing I said to the security team at the staging area is, "Hey, where are your blue berets?"
Yeah, they didn't like that.
They didn't find any humor in that. Why, Mike? Why?
Yes. Oh well.
We should have shown up with blue berets. That'd be cool. Oh
no. I knew that one going in, so that would have been Dale all by himself on that one.
Well, I cough a little bit. Why don't you tell everybody what it was like at the staging area?
Well, I mean, they don't have room down at the mine for everybody in the entirety of the logistics of the operation here. So they're going back and forth in shifts, essentially, and they have an area where they meet people from the press and people from outside, and they drop off donations and get. Apparently, they've been getting a fair amount of people dropping by, just wishing them well. You're still muted there, Dale.
And they're certainly not going to be bringing any kind of big vehicles up to this mine. It takes forever to get there. Mm-hmm. There's nobody is going to be walking in here by accident and stumbling over this site. No, it's
probably not.
And Mike kept at. He said, "How in the world did these original miners find this? Because it's like up and down and back and forth and over the stream."
Oh yeah, and there were mules and covered wagons or whatever they brought back in there that couldn't have been very good. And, they didn't have bridges and stuff at that point. So they probably had to, rig some sort of a bridge up across the Rogue River to get over there. And, to bring all that equipment in there and everything, that was an unbelievable task. And what tells you in this place, I couldn't imagine what it was about that place. They obviously, knew the geology and things of that nature. I'm assuming that. And that's how they discovered that particular location. But wow, you really have to, when you think about what they had to do, you really have to admire these people. Those people understood what hard work was. That is for sure.
They must have found something on the ground somewhere, because as you can see from this photo, I mean, one rock pretty much looks like another rock. And so the idea that you were going to dig in here was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And they had this river, this little river running by it that was dug out by Chinese workers
Yeah.
and they were making it run so quickly that they could use it for placer mining too. Really?
Yeah, well, you have to encase it in a pipe at some point in that process in order to maintain that kind of pressure. But it's, I found the mine more fascinating than what they're doing back there, really, because, I sort of understood what we were going to be seeing when we went back in there in the security respect, but the mining part of it is fascinating to me. And listen. I love these gold shows like Gold Rush and Bering Sea Gold and stuff. And I'll tell you, when you watch this stuff, you understand that mining for gold is mostly a lot of very, very hard work.
Hard rocks.
Yeah.
And, there may be people who say, oh, no, don't destroy the environment. Look, this is a fairly small hole. Okay. Yeah. It's once you get inside. Now, if you're worried about the integrity of the inside of a mountain or something, you are some kind of environmental fan, right? Yeah. It's not like they're chopping down everything and clear cutting. No, it's a hole in the ground.
Yes. No, it's, you know what? Listen, like all of these things, environmentalism has its basis in a decent desire to secure and maintain and conserve the environment, and that
the heritage of our country, the entire heritage of our country. But keep in mind, there's almost nothing that you use on a daily basis that doesn't come out of the ground.
Yes, right, exactly. And so, the idea that you have to stop doing stuff like this entirely. Just stop it. No more nothing. This is the environmentalist wacko fringe that comes to this place where you cannot do anything. You can't cut a tree. You can't dig in the ground. You can't do any of this stuff. You can't do anything. That's just insanity to me.
Well, the other side is the ones with the biggest trucks that have ever been made in the world, much bigger than I can hold up my arms. And there's these huge trucks with these tires that are bigger than your whole house. Just the tire is bigger than your house, and they're digging this stuff. It's like the size of Maine, and each one of the shovel loads, and they're trying to find this. Is just a little bit different, but it has something very valuable in there that I'm pretty sure the federal government would love to get their hands on if they could just get past that pesky law that's been around before Oregon was a state.
Yeah. And you're right about in many cases when they're doing open pit mining.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing on this Gold Rush show now. They go in and they drill a bunch of holes in the ground. They determine where the gold is, and then they basically just dig it up. And sometimes it's 25, 30, 40 feet deep, and they dig the whole area up. They take all of the soil and they run it through a sluice. And boom, and then they, the tailings, everything that comes off, they just pile it up in big piles. And I don't know what you're going to do with that land after that. Of course, it's out in the middle of the Yukon where there isn't anything. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But I understand environmental concerns in that department, but that is not happening here.
No, that's not what's happening here. Look, one of these days we'll be lucky enough, if he ever finishes his book, we'll get Orville Camp on here to talk about how you can have sustainable forever for generations doing timber cutting in our forests that are in this area. And he says, you go in there with a couple of very small vehicles, not these huge ones with the huge tires. You go in there with a couple of small vehicles and you do it as a family kind of thing. You can sustain your family for generations on a relatively small piece of ground of cutting timber and doing it judiciously. Well, the same thing goes here. These are a couple of guys.
Yeah.
And they're making a small living off of this. They're not living in the Bahamas.
No.
Think of the work that they need to do out there. And you met Danny. I mean, I think that they're decent people, and this is the bedrock, thank you very much, of America.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, you go in that hole. Now, just for a little bit of reference, I'd say that's probably 4.5, maybe 5 foot high, that
Yes,
opening
you'd
of
have
that
to
hole.
bend over to get in there. That's
Yeah,
correct.
you'd have to bend over, and you're going to go in there 1,100 feet. And that's quite a long ways. It takes sound a second to get that far.
You better hope that you brought good batteries in your flashlight.
Yeah, and you're going to be bent over the whole time. You listen. This is hard work, and it's I would hope that they get a pretty good return on that sort of thing. If
Well,
if they're doing that kind of work.
Just one thing. Let's suppose the federal government said, well, we're going to do it, or we're going to lease it out to someone else. They're going to lease it out to the biggest firm they can find. So just in general, would you prefer to have, I'm going to combine those two again. Would you prefer to have some big timber conglomerate that's coming down from Canada or whatever to cut down all the timber in an area, or would you prefer to have a kind of a, not mom and pop, but a family operation that's going in there and pulling out trees that keep them going and keep them, not having international bank accounts, but having an ability to make a living for themselves, a little mom and pop style operation? Or would you rather that a couple of guys have a gold mine that's keeping them in the chips and not living the life of Riley, but doing okay? Or would you rather have a really big company come in and take everything out in 2 years?
Yeah. It's and let me tell you what, if something like that happened, the environmentalists, and there are some on social media, just the posting of some of these videos get some of those people coming out of the woodwork. They say, oh my gosh, they shouldn't be doing that. It's not their land. It belongs to the government, blah, blah, blah. And
it belongs to the government.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's both ends of the spectrum, I guess.
You got to actually look at it and see for yourself. Okay, it's a small operation. It's a valuable resource, that's for sure. But it's guys busting their back to get there, and they have been doing so for well over 100 years. And so, just for that alone, I would like to see the federal government just hold on a second. Let's have our day in court. And then you lay out your side, we'll lay out our side. So the Oath Keepers come in and, yeah, it's an armed camp. And yeah, there are probably some Oath Keepers, like there are some county commissioners that are pretty weird, but probably so. But if they can hold it back a little bit and say, put away your torches, let's settle this like gentlemen and ladies in a court of law. And then we'll have to abide, and there may be an appeal by either side, by both sides. Okay, just back down a little bit. Don't get so rambunctious. And that's what these guys are doing there. They're just giving them their day in court. I'm in favor of that.
Yep.